You were lying in bed, lights off, the weight of sleep pulling at you like a slow tide, but something inside you resists. Some part of your brain is still flickering, still awake, still listening. Good, because I have one last story to tell. Then you can drift away, or try to. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you genuinely like my videos. Today's story is about Max, a man who missed the last subway home and found that the tunnel was waiting for him. It was 12:36 at the morning when he arrived at the U8 platform, the one deep under Hermannplatz in Berlin. The kind of station that feels like it was carved into the earth before the Second World War and never really updated. The tiles were stained, the air tasted faintly of metal and mold, and the lighting buzzed like a dying fly. Max had been out with friends, drinks had blurred the time, and by the time he noticed how quiet the streets were, it was too late. He ran down the station stairs with a desperate hope of catching the final train north. But when he reached the platform, the doors of the last train were already hissing shut. The red lights on the back of the carriage flickered as it disappeared into the darkness. Classic, he muttered, pulling out his phone. No signal. Of course, down here he was cut off. A dead spot in the middle of the city. The digital board above him, normally glowing with times and destinations, was blank. Not delayed, not next train in 15 minutes, just off. The emptiness around him felt heavy. No other passengers, no maintenance crew, no late-night stragglers with beer breath and headphones. Just him and the soft humming of old fluorescent lights. Max sat on the cold bench, scrolling aimlessly through old messages, pretending not to notice the silence. Then, after a few minutes, he heard it, a faint sound. At first, it might have been the settling of metal or a gust of air from a maintenance vent. But it came again, a click, clack, click sharp and rhythmic. Like heels on stone or something dragging metal along the rails. He stood, listening. The sound was coming from the tunnel. Not the direction the train had gone, but the opposite side. The one where no train had come from in a long while. He stepped closer to the platform's edge, peered into the blackness. Nothing, no lights, no movement. Just the oppressive sense that something was there, waiting just beyond the reach of his vision. He backed away, suddenly cold. Time passed, though how much he couldn't say. The station had no clocks, and his phone had stopped showing the time. He tried restarting it. Nothing. Just black. Hen, a light. It flickered deep in the tunnel. Dim like a flashlight someone had dropped and picked up again. Wavering. Distant, but moving. Hey, Max called out. His voice echoed unnaturally in the empty station. Is someone there? The light paused. Then moved again. Closer. Unsteady. There was no answer. Just the soft click-clack of those invisible steps, or was it something else? Something dragging? Max took a step forward, then another, and then the world shifted. The platform behind him disappeared. No sound, no warning. One moment he was at the edge. The next he was standing on the gravel beside the tracks. The ceiling pressing down like the weight of a buried coffin. He spun around. The bench was gone. The lights were off. The tunnel was endless in both directions. He was completely alone. Except he wasn't. There was breathing. Not his. Shallow and wrong, like someone trying to mimic a human rhythm and getting it just slightly off. Max turned and ran. Not because he knew where he was going, but because the thought of standing still was unbearable. He passed rusted emergency doors, flickering safety signs, and then, like a miracle, he saw light spilling from a room to the left, a service room wedged between walls of shadow and dust. He pushed the door open. Inside was a woman. She was sitting in a chair facing the far wall. Her hair hung in wet clumps down her back. Her dress was white, but stained and torn, like she'd crawled through mud and glass. She didn't move. Didn't even flinch when he entered. Hey, Max said, breathless. Are you all right? No reaction. He stepped closer. I think I'm lost. I need to. Her head turned slowly, unnaturally slowly, like it was disconnected from the rest of her body, and then she smiled. It was not a comforting smile. It was wide and too full of teeth. Her lips cracked at the edges. Her eyes didn't blink. "You're waiting?" she whispered, voice dry and rustling like dead leaves. Max's mouth went dry. She raised a single finger and pointed behind him back toward the tunnel. Then wait. The light flickered. When it returned, she was gone. The chair was empty, but on the wall, drawn in something dark and smeared, were the words, "No one leaves the waiting area." Then came the sound. A rumble. The rail trembled. A train was approaching. Max ran back to the track just as the train screeched into the station. It didn't slow down. It rolled to a stop like it hadn't been driven, but simply knew when to stop. The doors opened with a sigh. No lights inside. No passengers. Max stepped in. The doors shut behind him with a mechanical finality that made his stomach turn. He moved through the cars, hoping to find a driver, an intercom, anything. At the front of the train stood a man in uniform, facing forward, one hand resting on the controls. "Thank God," Max breathed. "Sir, I need to—" Then he saw the man's face. Or rather, he didn't. The driver had no face, no eyes, no nose, no mouth. Just smooth skin stretched tight like a mannequin left too long in the sun. The train lurched forward. It did not stop. It did not slow. Stations passed in a blur, but none were familiar. Some were barely more than hollow spaces carved in rock, filled with flickering lights and shadows that seemed to move just before you could focus on them. After what felt like hours, the train halted. The doors opened. In front of Max was only darkness and one single broken sign, "Waiting area." He stepped off, not because he wanted to, but because he had to. He heard them before he saw them. Whispers, not words, not really, but fragments, syllables that clawed at his thoughts. Voices that said things like "stay" and "down to go," and "we remember." And then the train rolled away. The lights faded. And Max stood there alone, waiting, still waiting. Because some places aren't real on any map. Some stations don't show up on the schedule, but they exist. Between seconds, between thoughts. They exist in the cracks of the world. For those who are late, for those who linger. And they're patient. So the next time you miss the last subway of the night, don't go into the tunnel. Don't step past the edge. Because something may already be waiting. And it has all the time in the world.